Scenario Simulation 2031. The fall of the Zionist experiment, the rise of a Turkic axis, and the collapse of the West. Year 2031. The geopolitical landscape of the 21st century has entered its most volatile and transformative phase. With the collapse of the Israeli state, regime change in Iran, and the disintegration of the European Union, a new player emerges from the shadows of history. Türkiye, no longer a peripheral NATO ally, but a strategic sovereign empire in the making, uniting with Turkic nations across Central Asia and establishing a third pole in Eurasia. Regime change in Iran. The Shia theocracy ends, the state endures. The Islamic Republic collapses under internal revolt and elite defections. Instead of falling into Western hands, Iran undergoes a nationalist transformation, guided by pragmatic generals and civilian reformists aligned with Russia and China. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is purged, and clerical power is dismantled. Iran's new government opens trade, joins BRICS Plus formally, and for the first time, normalizes its relations with Türkiye, Turkmenistan, and Azerbaijan, creating a power corridor from the Persian Gulf to the Caspian Sea. Iran is reborn as a regional pole, not a proxy. 2. Collapse of Israel, Zionism's final gamble. Following decades of war crimes, apartheid accusations, and the moral collapse of the Israeli state, the world finally turns on Tel Aviv. After a military defeat in southern Lebanon and a failed preventive strike against Iran, Israel loses the backing of a paralyzed U.S. and a broken Europe. The International Criminal Court enforces sanctions. Cities like Haifa and Ashdod descend into chaos. Jerusalem is internationalized. The Zionist elite flee, and the remaining population is forcibly evacuated or voluntarily migrates to Ukraine, where the Zelensky-era Zionist financial backers broker refugee corridors in eastern regions. Argentina, under a Patagonia agreement, vast rural zones are opened to Israeli settlers, reviving old Mossad land-buying schemes from the 20th century. Canada, Australia, and California absorb others, but Israel as a sovereign Jewish state ceases to exist. 3. Türkiye rises, from regional player to civilizational power. As the West crumbles, Türkiye steps into the vacuum left behind by the collapsing Atlantic Order. President Erdogan's successor capitalizes on the geopolitical void by exiting NATO officially in 2029, signing a strategic defense pact with Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Azerbaijan, transforming the organization of Turkic states into a military and economic union, a pan-Turkic NATO of the East. Establishing the Ankara Doctrine, asserting Türkiye's role as the protector of the Turkic world and a mediator between Islamic and Eurasian civilizations. Türkiye now controls or influences critical energy corridors, drone warfare technology, natural gas pipelines, and Eurasian rail trade from Istanbul to Urumqi. Its military-industrial complex, centered around Baykar, Aselsan, and Roketsan, has replaced U.S. defense exports across the Muslim world, from Libya to Somalia to Pakistan. 4. The European Union implodes, civil wars, economic collapse, and the return of the Balkan ghost. In the 2020s, Europe ignored its demographic time bomb. By 2030, civil war breaks out in France, triggered by ethnic riots, economic collapse, and a backlash against decades of failed multicultural integration. Germany fractures under Islamist secular clashes and populist militarization. Bavaria attempts to secede. Sweden, Belgium, and the Netherlands fall into martial law following armed uprisings. The euro currency collapses, and the Schengen zone is abandoned. The European Union officially dissolves in 2031 as Hungary, Poland, and Italy leave to form a new nationalist Christian alliance. Brussels becomes a ghost town, symbol of failed utopia. European financial power, long dependent on Jewish banking dynasties and American military backing, disappears as capital flees to the east. The third pole, the Turkic Eurasian superbloc. The global balance of power now rests on three pillars. The Anglo-American fragment, led by a weakened, divided United States, consumed by civil strife and corporate feudalism. The Sino-Russian axis, anchored by China's industrial dominance and Russia's energy and security apparatus. The Turkic power bloc, led by Türkiye and extending from the Balkans to Central Asia, controlling trade, defense, and spiritual influence over the Muslim and Turkic world. This Turkic union, once mocked by Western analysts as folklore, now includes Türkiye, military-industrial and spiritual leader; Azerbaijan, energy hub and Eurasian bridge; Kazakhstan, mineral and logistical base; Uzbekistan, population and religious core; Turkmenistan, gas and Caspian pivot; northern Syria and Libya, strategic extensions under Turkish protection. It serves as both a military alliance, a financial network with its own gold-backed digital currency, and a civilizational counterweight to the collapsing Judeo-Christian West. 6. Conclusion. The old world ends, a new one begins. In the ashes of the failed Zionist project, the collapse of EU liberalism, and the downfall of U.S. imperial hubris, the world is reborn. The Middle East stabilizes under a Turk-Iran balance, no longer manipulated by Tel Aviv or Washington. The Turkic nations rise not as neo-empires, but as a confederation rooted in culture, trade, and sovereignty. Europe becomes a fractured memory of globalist arrogance, its cities burned by civil strife, its currencies worthless, its elites exiled. The global South looks east, and the 21st century is no longer American or Chinese. It is multipolar, and in many ways, Turkic.